Hi, my name is Kay, and today I'm going to be yapping about slow killers. So, some killers in the game, Dead by Daylight, have a slower movement speed than average. And I've been thinking about this since Springtrap dropped, and it's really come to my mind, especially after the new Trickster PTB nerfed his movement speed again, after they previously buffed it. So I kind of wanted to talk about it because I feel like a lot of these killers really don't need to be that slow and don't need to be that slow all the time. So yeah, the slow ass killers that we have in the game are Nurse, Myers, Hag, Huntress, Spirit, Slinger, Trickster, Chucky, Springtrap, and Vecna too. Um, and I feel like Nurse and Myers are like kind of excluded from this discussion because they're kind of slow in way different ways than the other killers. Um, I feel like not only are they both by default much slower than the other slow killers, right? Nurse moves at I think 3.8 meters per second. Myers moves at 4.2 meters per second by default. And they're both kind of excluded from this discussion in different ways. Nurse's movement speed is to compensate for her fuck ass strong power. In an ideal world, her power would be reworked and her movement speed would be buffed in the process. So I'm thinking something like Torn Bookmark, and I might do a whole video on that topic just because I feel like there's a lot I could say there. But that's largely a separate discussion from this. Now Myers is slow because he starts out in the stealth form, and that's literally the only reason. He can pretty much buff himself back to normal movement speed anytime he wants by just pressing the button. So it's like kind of a technicality that he's even considered a slow killer. I think if you look in his bio, it says that he's a slower movement speed killer. And that's barely even true. But first I want to talk about the killers that I think are 4.4 movement speed, but like for good, right? I think it's a good choice that they're 4.4 movement speed, or like I like the way that they implemented the 4.4 movement speed. And Springtrap is a prime example. I think Springtrap is such a good example of what they ought to be doing with 4.4 killers, right? Because he's only 4.4 when he has the axe in his hand, or rather when he has the axe in his inventory, I guess is more accurate. Um, he moves much slower than 4.4 when he's actually holding his axe. But when he doesn't have his axe, like when it's embedded in the environment or it's on cooldown, he moves at 4.6, which is regular killer speed. And I think this makes a lot of sense since this power has kind of limited range. You know, it doesn't go as far as a Huntress hatchet, it doesn't go as far as a Trickster knife. I don't even think it goes as far as a Deathslinger spear. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense to counter holding W because he can't really damage survivors from a massive distance. He doesn't really get uh anything out of his power when survivors are holding W, unless if they're within his 16-meter range or whatever. I don't know the exact number. It might be more like 20 meters, but that being said, being 4.6 without a power gives him some help. And as like an average killer, that's welcome. Now, Vecna 2 or Vectua has a crazy strong chase power. So he's kind of 4.6 in the way that Spirit is 4.6, but he's much stronger than Spirit. And it kind of allows the survivor to hold distance and chase, which is pretty much his only counter is holding W and taking fuck ass pathing to kind of confuse him, make him miss his power. And he actually loses a lot of distance on you if you keep spamming his power and missing. Um, but with him, I really appreciate how they didn't allow his slow movement speed to hinder his map traversal because he has the ability to traverse the upside down. And he might honestly be fine if they moved him 5% slower. Now, I'm not advocating for that. But he's such a strong killer, and it wouldn't even limit his map traversal. That like if he was Myers stalker mode like speed, I don't even necessarily know if that would be a bad thing or not, or if it would bring him down the tier list much. It might just make him more frustrating to play, which I'm not necessarily in favor of. But it kind of goes to show that he might be uh, strong despite his movement speed. You know, his movement speed doesn't impact his strength very much. Um, but there are a lot of killers that should be a lot more like Springtrap, where they don't have the movement speed penalty when they don't have a power. And I would say Huntress is a prime example of that. She actually has an add-on that works very similar to Springtrap's base kit, called the Soldier's Putty. And it's an iridescent add-on that increases her movement speed to 4.6 meters per second when she's out of hatchets. And I feel like that's such a that should obviously be base kit, especially with how Springtrap is designed. I feel like there's no reason that that isn't base kit. Um, Maybe they're scared of buffing her just because she has like a decent kill rate, but she's not like a terribly strong killer. She's kind of underpowered, right? She's a hard time pressuring gens with no map mobility tool. And I think it would be weird to just hand her a map mobility tool like Vecna or Springtrap. But 4.6 without hatchets could definitely help a little bit, but even more so than that, I think it wouldn't even do any harm. Like, would she even move up the tier list? Probably not, because you don't want to be without hatchets that much with Huntress, especially in chase. Um, so it would at least it would pretty much help mostly for going for reloads. But it would also help just to give her the option to be 4.6. Um, but even with that, like she would still probably be weak without with the increased movement speed. Now Slinger, I think he's actually Slinger has been getting a lot of Slinger has been getting a lot of appreciation lately. He's kind of every time I look at a tier list, I feel like he moves up in modern DBD. I think that's because modern DBD is much more chase heavy. You get a lot more out of winning your chases. And his reload system is kind of similar to Springtrap, right? I mean, it's obviously a bit more forgiving than Springtrap because you don't have to go on a cooldown after you miss or hit. But it's you reload at any time. You don't have to go to a locker. But the thing is, Slinger is pretty bad against hold W in a very similar way to Springtrap. He has kind of a limited range with his gun. I don't think it's as limited as Springtrap. But Slinger also has no map mobility tool, so giving him 4.6 when his gun is unloaded could help when abandoning chases and checking gens. Um, he would definitely be too strong if he was 4.6 at all times though, because the thing about Slinger is he's quite strong in modern DBD. I already mentioned that, but he's like kind of held back by the fact he can't use a lot of the stronger perks in the game, a lot of the stronger gen perks, or at least a large chunk of them. I would say off the top of my head, Pop Goes the Weasel doesn't really work on him. Uh, Nowhere to Hide, that doesn't really work on him. That's not really a regression perk, but it's a gen kick perk. Eruption doesn't quite work on him. I mean, you could probably make it work, especially if you were holding a 3 gen, but it doesn't work on him as well as it does on other killers. And then Turn Back the Clock even, just because you still have to waltz over to the generator. So yeah, that's why I mean I feel like Slinger. There's no reason why Slinger shouldn't have the same mechanic as Springtrap. Um, but I would be open to the idea of not implementing it if they tried it and it was like busted. You know, I think it would be a change for the PTB in the future. And I wanted to touch on Spirit and Chucky. They're weird because they're both 4.4, but they're not ranged killers. They're more like dash killers. Um, they both have really strong chase powers that let them cover distance and damage survivors. Um, Spirit more strong than Chucky, but being 4.4 with long power cooldowns makes them particularly punished for missing with their power. But honestly, that's kind of fine that they're punished with the 4.4 because their powers are kind of hard to they're kind of hard to counter. So if you do counter them, you're rewarded immensely. And I honestly think that's pretty good design that makes it feel really good when you're playing against a Chucky or Spirit and you like outplay them because you get to make a lot of distance. Um, but there is an issue with that, and it's my main, right? It's my main killer. It's Dracula, okay? Dracula kind of does both of their powers. Obviously weaker than each of them individually with each individual shapeshift form, but it's kind of like weird that he's 4.6 and he can do spirit stuff and he can do Chucky stuff, right? He has for Chucky he has the third person camera with wolf form. Also the dash, the wolf form pounce is kind of reminiscent of Chucky's dash, although it's way different, but they're kind of similar in essence. And bat form is similar to spirit in that you can catch up to survivors easy. And now both of these are weaker. Both of these powers of Dracula's are weaker than their individual powers. But the thing is, those individual powers are all those killers do. Chucky has his light stealth, but um, that's that's still like it's weird. It's weird that Dracula is so much stronger than them, and he's 4.6, and they're still 4.4. And I'm not even saying Dracula should be nerfed, right? I don't even think he would be that nerfed by being 4.4 in wolf form. I know that's how he came out, and he would probably go down a few spots on the tier list, but like I don't. It's just it's weird to justify these two having 4.4 when Dracula just gets to be 4.6. It kind of feels like a weird double standard. Like it feels like they forgot that Chucky was 4.6. And the funny thing is, I don't even think they did forget. I think they intentionally made Dracula because if you don't remember on the PTV for Dracula, he was 4.4 in wolf form, right? And he had to collect the Sen Orbs to become normal killer speed for a short period of time. And that was actually kind of weak, right? Everyone was saying that wolf form was dog ass. So I'm not even sure like if they because Spirit and Chucky are pretty strong um at 4.4. I kind of go back and forth on it, but I definitely think it wouldn't be bad to try maybe seeing what they would be like at 4.6 or maybe a variable 4.6 at specific moments, maybe when they're on cooldown or something. Um just as like a spring trap type situation. But I don't know, they're strange. They're strange, and I'm not sure what behavior should do about them or if they need to do anything about them or for them movement speed wise. But now we get to the killers that are in a dire need to just have their movement speed increased. There's no reason these killers need to be lower movement speed. And first I wanted to talk about Trickster. Now on live servers right now, Trickster is 4.6 movement speed, but that's getting reduced in the upcoming All Kill Comeback PTB where he's getting updated to have a whole bunch of stuff added to his kit. Um, but he's being reduced to 4.4 movement speed, and I don't really see why. Um, it just seems like an unnecessary nerf to a killer that just is like mid tier, right? Um, I'm trying to think of where Trickster would even be too strong if he was 4.6, because he he's like, and I'm thinking about live servers right now. I guess maybe going back to a hook, but even then, like they if they increase the radius that main event doesn't work around hook survivors, I don't even know. Cause I mean he's ranged anyway. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really think there's a single like benefit that survivors get when this guy is 4.4 instead of 4.6. It's kind of just a feel bad thing to make him get looped at high wall areas and you can hold W against him. Um but honestly, I mean Trickster if Trickster came to live with 4.4, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It would be like he would probably get a little bit weaker on the tier list. He would probably go down. And not by too much. So like I mean I don't know. I don't know if being 4.4 even makes him better to play against. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about here. Because if he was 4.6, he wouldn't go up the tier list that much, you know. But even then, like, he's just not the worst case of this because we have Hag. And Hag is a very sad story. Hag used to be I used to watch tier lists, listen to tier lists actually, um, where people would put Hag as literally A tier or even S tier, right? Like people were like, "Oh yeah, like good hags are fucking terrifying." Now people are like kind of blackpilled on hag. They don't hag is like at the bottom of every tier list. And honestly, I kind of agree with that. I think hag is like one of the most underpowered killers in the game. And it's really sad because there's no real reason for it, right? Her power is like kind of weak, right? It's like it's strong in unhook scenarios, and it's like weak everywhere else because survivors can just tail the hag and just cleanse the or wipe away the phantasm traps. Um, she's just a killer that was designed for like a completely different Dead by Daylight. To be honest, I think a lot of people would agree with that. I mean, Trapper was is also designed for another a completely different Dead by Daylight. What other killers? Honestly, Hag, Trapper, and like I don't know, those are the two killers that come to my mind that feel like they're way too outdated for modern Dead by Daylight. And I feel like Hag just needs a full overhaul. Not even like a rework, because I think the way her power works fundamentally is like fine. But she just needs updated to be like to kind of be competitive in the modern Dead by Daylight environment. Because being 4.4 movement speed is just like that's just a slap in the face to a killer that's already like weak. And like I'm trying to think. I mean, Hag could get so much from being 4.6. She would be able to actually do chase. Um because you can't commit to any chases with Hag unless if it's like the middle of the game if you've already set up your traps. She would set up her traps quicker because she would be able to get to her trap locations quicker if she was 4.6. I cannot think of a reason why this killer isn't. Um And to compensate, if they were to do it, to compensate, they could just make it to where you can't put traps near hook survivors because that's where Hag is like most unfun, right? It wouldn't even be like I think people would have fun against Hag if she was 4.6 because Hag is would just be like a normal M1 killer. It would be like looping a trapper. Like people like looping a trapper. Um, and Hag is like kind of a more exciting trapper because of how she pops up and the kind of mind game. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I just feel like behavior should relitigate the need for slow movement speed with these killers, and they have to do it on a case by case basis. They can't just blanket remove it because there are some killers like I mentioned Vecna who would be fucked if they were regular killer movement speed. They cannot be regular killer movement speed. But a lot of these killers just don't need to be 4.4. Certainly not 4.4 all the time. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have to say on on the topic. I mean, I don't know. I was just thinking about it because of the trickster PTB. But if you have any thoughts, make sure to comment them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.